Imagine it's 1995. The internet is barely crawling. Ellen hasn't come out yet. And suddenly, on MTV and radio stations across America, there's a bouncy, unapologetic song about a woman kissing another woman not as a publicity stunt, not as a party trick, but as an authentic expression of desire. Before Lady Gaga was born this way, before Lil Nas X mounted the devil, there was Jill Sobule, the trailblazing artist who dared to sing her truth when doing so could have ended her career. And now, we've lost her voice forever. On May 2nd, 2024, at just 66 years old, Jill Sobule died in a house fire while preparing for what would have been yet another groundbreaking performance. Today, we honor the woman who wasn't just ahead of her time, she helped create a new one. Jill Sobule's story, like many of ours, hits a painful roadblock in 7th grade. As she recounted in her autobiographical show aptly titled Fuck 7th Grade, it was the year everything changed. In 6th grade, I was this tomboy, I was a badass, I was the electric guitar player, she once told Playbill. Suddenly, 7th grade happened, and my friends started wearing makeup, and I didn't feel like I fit in. It was during this pivotal year that young Jill began to recognize something different about herself. She was developing crushes on her female friends. In an era where such feelings were rarely discussed, let alone celebrated, she found herself isolated, even being called homophobic slurs. Growing up, she later joked that her only queer role models were Miss Jane Hathaway from the Beverly Hillbillies and her gym teacher, who looked like Pete Rose. With characteristic humor, she transformed this pain into art decades later, but the scars of that formative time never fully healed. Fast forward to 1995. After years of fighting for recognition in the music industry, Sobule released her self-titled album featuring what would become her signature hit, I Kissed a Girl. This wasn't just any song, it was revolutionary. As Glad notes, it became the first song with blatantly queer themes to break the Billboard Top 20. Let that sink in. In an America still years away from even considering marriage equality, Sobule's playful yet profound exploration of same-sex attraction was blasting from car speakers nationwide. The music video rotated heavily on MTV, featuring a pre-fame Fabio and showcasing Sobule's signature wit and charm. But behind the catchy melody lay a profound act of courage. After the song's success, speculation about Sobule's sexuality intensified. Initially, her record label told The Advocate she was straight, a sadly common practice in an industry terrified of alienating mainstream audiences. But Sobule refused to play that game. She personally reached out to The Advocate to set the record straight. Or rather, not straight at all. I guess if I had to pinpoint my sexual orientation, which I hate to do, then bisexuality would come the closest, she declared in the January 1996 issue. Think about the landscape then. This was a full year before Ellen DeGeneres' historic Yep, I'm Gay Time magazine cover. This was when being out in entertainment could mean career suicide. Yet there was Sobule discussing the spectrum of sexuality with a nuance that many still struggle to grasp today. What many don't realize is that Sobule was far more than one queer anthem. She released 12 albums throughout her career, each showcasing her genre-defying creativity and razor-sharp lyrical prowess. Remember the iconic film Clueless? That's Sobule's voice on Supermodel, the movie's unforgettable track. Years later, she wrote the theme song for Nickelodeon's Unfabulous, introducing her talent to a new generation. She was also an innovator in the business side of music. Before Kickstarter existed, Sobule pioneered crowdfunding for musicians, refusing to let industry gatekeepers determine her artistic fate. Throughout her life, Sobule used her platform to advocate for causes close to her heart. Beyond LGBTQ+ rights, she spoke passionately about reproductive freedom, opposed the death penalty, addressed eating disorders, and fiercely criticized what would become known as the MAGA movement. Her songs weren't just entertainment, they were protest, celebration, and social commentary wrapped in irresistible melodies. In a music industry that often encourages artists to stay apolitical, Sobule chose relevance and honesty over safety. Glad president and CEO Sarah Kate Ellis captured this perfectly. Long before it was safe or common, Jill was writing and singing about sexuality and identity with raw honesty and wit. At a time when doing so could have cost her everything, she chose truth. 13 years after Sobule's breakthrough hit, Katy Perry released her own song with the same title. The contrast between the two tracks speaks volumes about how times had changed, partly because of pioneers like Sobule herself. Where Perry's version played into male fantasy and girls gone wild tropes, Sobule's original captured the genuine emotion, confusion, and liberation of same-sex attraction. Yet Sobule harbored no bad feelings about Perry's song, recognizing that any representation mattered. If I was a little girl and I heard Katy Perry's Kissed a Girl and I had those kind of feelings, which I did, I would still feel like, that's great, that's wonderful, she told The Advocate in 2009, adding with characteristic wit, but I will say that maybe mine was a little more, just a touch more queer than Girls Gone Wild. In her later years, Sobule turned her childhood trauma into triumph with her one-woman show Fuck 7th Grade. The autobiographical performance became an off-Broadway hit in 2022, earning a New York Times Critics Pick and a Drama Desk Award nomination. The show represented everything that made Sobule special. Her vulnerability transformed into strength, her pain transmuted into art, her personal experiences crafted into universal truths. Tragically, when the house fire claimed her life, she was rehearsing for a performance of songs from this very show, scheduled for the next day at Denver's Swallow Hill Music Festival. An original cast recording of Fuck 7th Grade will be released posthumously on June 6th. Alongside a reissue of her self-titled album, those who knew Sobule personally speak of a warmth and generosity that matched her artistic brilliance. Her manager, John Porter, called her a force of nature and human rights advocate whose music is woven into our culture. Even more touching was the statement from her lawyer, Ken Hertz. Jill wasn't just a client, she was family to us. She showed up for every birth, every birthday, and every holiday. She performed at our daughter's wedding, and I was her tech when she performed by Zoom from our living room while living with us during the pandemic. These testimonials reveal a woman who didn't just champion connection and community through her art, she lived those values every day. When an artist like Jill Sobule shares their truth, it creates ripples that extend far beyond their own life. As Ellis from Glad noted, Sobule helped pave the way for today's openly queer artists like Brandi Carlile, Tegan and Sarah, Lil Nas X, Sam Smith, and Adam Lambert. Every young person who heard I Kissed a Girl in 1995 and felt a little less alone, every musician who saw Sobule flourish on her own terms and felt emboldened to do the same, every fan who recognized their own struggles in her lyrics, they all carry pieces of Sobule's legacy forward. In this age of streaming numbers and viral moments, it's easy to underestimate the impact of artists like Sobule. But cultural shifts don't happen overnight. They require courage, persistence, and voices willing to speak when silence seems safer. In losing Jill Sobule, we've lost not just a brilliant songwriter and performer, but a pioneer who helped reshape the very landscape we now take for granted. She created space where there was none. She sang truths when lies were easier. She chose authenticity when conformity promised rewards. The best way to honor her memory isn't just to remember her hits, but to embody her courage to speak our truths, to lift others up, to transform our pain into art that heals both ourselves and others. Jill Sobule may have left us, but her fearless voice continues to echo in the music industry she helped transform, in the minds of the countless fans she touched, and in the freer, more authentic world she helped create. She kissed a girl, and she changed the world. Jill Sobule is survived by her brother and sister-in-law, James and Mary Ellen Sobule, her nephews, Ian, Matthew, and Robert's wife, Irina. A free gathering in Sobule's honor will be held at the Swallow Hill Music Festival, with a more formal memorial event planned for this summer.